What up, Fight World? It's your boy Ego, and I'm back with some more boxing. Now. Ever since I have had my channel, you get different types of fans. Some of you guys are really educated. You know your shit. You quote a lot of factual information. I can see your views, even if I don't agree with them. I understand. You're very respectful. Then you have the people that are just fucking stupid. And I'm going to talk about some of those people in this video. So it looks like Gennady, Triple G, Golovkin has reached a deal with Curtis Stevens to fight in November 2nd to be exact. And I did a video on this. Some of you guys leave the most asinine, retarded comments. Some people were saying Stevens was afraid of Gennady Golovkin, even though after his knockout, he called Gennady Golovkin out. They were saying he was offered some kind of money and he was trying to duck Gennady Golovkin. I don't really understand that logic. I mean, for the most part, you're not gonna duck somebody and then price yourself out and take a like when it's a considerable amount of money being given to you. Maybe in the Pacquiao Mayweather type situation, okay, Pacquiao priced himself out and said, "Oh, 40 million is not good enough," but he's a big superstar. Curtis Stevens is not a well-known name, and this would obviously be a big platform as Gennady Golovkin is definitely gaining momentum in the states. He's becoming a fan friendly fighter, a fan favorite. So I don't see why he would pass up 300,000. Someone left a comment, "Oh, he passed up 300,000 or whatever amount of money." A significant amount of money plus a lot of exposure. Plus, you called this guy out, which is probably more than he made in his last fight. So that's one thing. So you guys spread information without any kind of confirmation. You have no viable sources. You have no credible sources. And you spread information. That's one problem. But again, this is a sport of boxing. You need all the types of fans. We need the good, educated fans with logical thinking. We also need you fucking parasites. And that's what some of you are. As far as this fight, Curtis Stevens versus Gennady Golovkin. Again, I did a video on this. It wasn't a prediction video. It was after Curtis Stevens won and called Gennady Golovkin out. I did a video. My point is simple, whether you agree with me or not. What is the harm in Gennady Golovkin fighting someone else who has at least shown punching power? Curtis Stevens, who says, "I want the fight." If you just watch a hell of a fight, to be exact, Daniel Gill and Darren Barker, great fight. Both showed heart, showed chin, showed that they're warriors. I think Gennady Golovkin will destroy both of them. That's my honest opinion. Um, Fighting each other and dealing with each other's power is one thing, but Gennady Golovkin is on a different level. So Daniel Gill, especially, if he were to fight Gennady Golovkin in the jittery, like high energy, open, ready to exchange every second type of fight that he fought Darren Barker, I see him getting stopped or put to sleep. Honest opinion. I don't think they'd be equipped to deal with Gennady Golovkin. I think to beat Gennady Golovkin, there's going to be a few things that you're going to have. And that's excellent boxing ability, footwork, skill, ring generalship, a chin, and preferably, very preferably, power of your own. Because if he walks through your shit like a Sheeta and he doesn't respect you, um, and he has destructive power, then you're fucked. Especially if you try to fight toe to toe like dumbass Ashita did. Um, but anyway, back to Curtis Stevens and Gennady Golovkin. This is an exciting match. Like, I don't see what the outrage is about. Like, you're content with Gennady Golovkin when he first burst on the scene and had his first HBO fight. He fought Proska, who had no significant names on his belt at all. And he had a loss when he fought Gennady Golovkin. He had one loss. And everybody else he fought, who did he fucking fight? Like, name one person on his resume. Go to BoxRec or wherever the fuck, Wikipedia, and tell me who Proxa fought that made him relevant or dangerous or anything. And Gennady Golovkin tore through him in round 5. In the 5th round, I believe it was stopped. Since then, he lost again to Sergio Mora, who's had very big gaps and dry spells with his boxing activity. He had a subpar performance against Shane Mosley. They both look horrible in that fight. 2009, I don't think he fought at all. And this dude just beat Proska. a fighter that Gennady Golovkin already beat. So I believe he has 3 losses. So you're content with that, but you don't want to see Curtis Stevens. At the very least, Curtis Stevens has power. He shows no fear in terms of his post-fight interview. Now, I'm not him personally, so I don't know what he feels internally, but at least the outward appearance is that he wants a Gennady Golovkin fight, and he feels he can beat Gennady Golovkin. So confidence is good, especially when you're going in against a feared puncher. You don't want someone who fights like Macklin. No disrespect to Macklin, he's definitely a warrior and a solid contender. But Macklin really fought scared as soon as he fought Gennady Golovkin's power. And Curtis Stevens might fight scared once he feels Gennady Golovkin's power. It's one thing seeing it on TV, and it's a totally different thing feeling it. So I don't know. I'm not saying Curtis Stevens even has a shot to beat Gennady Golovkin. But the point being is simple. Some of you fans are so narrow and dumb that you are okay seeing certain fights, and then when the fight's a little bit more evenly matched, at least in the power department, or at least Curtis Stevens had been winning his last couple fights in impressive fashions, you guys don't want to see it. So Gennady Golovkin fights Proxka or whatever, who didn't have anybody on his name that was, in my opinion, like a world beater. So his resume is suspect, and you're okay with that fight. Gennady Golovkin fights Gabriel Rosado, a warrior, a fighter who definitely trains hard. He remains in good shape, but he was coming up in weight. So Curtis Stevens, a lot of people, I don't think you guys know boxing. That's the problem. Some of you guys don't know boxing. People are complaining that the guy Curtis Stevens knocked out in his last fight came up in weight. But guess what? Gabriel Rosado came up in weight to fight Gennady Golovkin. And although his face was mangled and bloody and Gennady Golovkin clearly was pretty much dominating, Gabriel Rosado beat him in spots. Like, he looked decent in spots and hit him more than I've seen. Put it this way, Gabriel Rosado had a better showing than Matthew Macklin, Nobuhiro Ishida, and Proska. Simple. He did. He at least hit Gennady Golovkin. He was lasting, and then ultimately he was bleeding too much, and the fight was stopped. So Triple G fights someone who came up in weight and TKOs him late, and it's really based on the cut was profusely bleeding, and his opponent at least held a good account of himself, considering he wasn't the bigger puncher or the bigger man. And when Gennady Golovkin is being matched up, or I do a video about Gennady Golovkin potentially fighting Curtis Stevens, who also brought a fighter up and knocked him out severely, I think in the first round. It was a highlight reel knockout. Then some of you guys use the excuse, oh, Curtis Stevens, he brought that guy up in weight and the guy had losses. Gabriel Rosado had losses. He had stoppage losses, actually. Angulo stopped him, to be honest. So that's my point. Some of you guys I don't think either you don't know or you just omit certain details out of fighters' history to try to make your point. Again, the point is simple. Gennady Golovkin brings up a fighter. Gabriel Rosado was supposed to happen at a catch weight. Rosado said, I don't want to catch weight. He came up in weight, fought Gennady Golovkin, held a good account of himself, even though he got his ass beat. He still made Gennady Golovkin pay at certain spots and look good, and probably is one of the better. He had one of the better showings against Gennady Golovkin, I guess is the way to put it. You could say, oh, Gennady Golovkin had the flu or whatever Gennady Golovkin said after the fight. That's fine. Curtis Stevens brings an opponent up and knocks him out brutally in the first round. No questions asked. Off a nice counter. So why don't you want to see the fight? Like I said, if Gennady Golovkin, my point still remains the same. Gennady Golovkin, he's fighting guys like Nobuhiro Ishida, then why not fight the person who's talking trash and at least has some power and has some decent wins in recent memory? If Curtis Stevens gets his head knocked off, so be it. I don't give a fuck. It doesn't change anything in my life. I mean, if he gets knocked out, if either one of them get knocked out, it's not putting money in my bank account, so I really could care less. So that's my point. Some of you guys are so impartial to the point where in order to try to defend your fighter or make your point, you go through great lengths. Just say you don't want him to fight him, if that's the case. But don't make excuses. Oh, Curtis Stevens, he knocked out a bum who's been stopped before, who came up in weight. Okay. Gabriel Rosado has losses, has been stopped before Gennady Golovkin, and he also came up in weight. So be consistent. That's the moral of the story. Other than that, like I said, I have no problem with this fight. I rather this fight, at least we're seeing Gennady Golovkin possibly get his chin tested. Not saying he doesn't have a chin, because I haven't really seen that. Nobody's really, in my opinion, going into the fight, there's nobody that really concerned me as far as their power. Matthew Macklin would probably be the closest. And I don't want to hear Gennady Golovkin in the amateurs with Darrell, or he knocked out Lucian Bute. This is a different ball game. I like Gennady Golovkin. I've said that. If you don't believe me, in January I did a video. It was like fighters to be on the lookout for, and I specifically said Gennady Golovkin. This was before he had fought Gabriel Rosado. This was before he had knocked out Nobuhiro Ishida, before Macklin. I was telling you guys this. So this is not Gennady Golovkin versus Curtis Stevens. Like, I'm picking Gennady to lose or anything like that. I like Gennady Golovkin. My point is simple. As a fan, stop being so fucking impartial. Know your facts and know the sport before you leave comments. And again, intelligently explain why this fight makes no sense. You got a guy with power who's looked good in his recent fights and has impressive knockouts, i.e. Curtis Stevens. He's talking shit to his opponent. He's from New York. They're talking about having this fight at Madison Square Garden. And Gennady Golovkin, another fighter with devastating power, who's looked good in fights, who has impressive highlight reel knockouts. Put the two together. Let's see what happens. Simple. And like I said, I didn't hear I hear an outcry. That's why it doesn't make sense to me. There's an outcry for Curtis Stevens, like, oh, he's a bum, he doesn't deserve a Gennady Golovkin shot. But Nobuhiro Ishida does. That was the main event, and he got knocked out like before 4 rounds. Like, Nobuhiro Ishida was not a puncher. He had no punching power. His biggest claim to fame was losing to Paul Williams and beating James Kirkland, who obviously has some screws loose and things like that. So, and he came up in weight. What are you saying? Like, some of you guys don't know boxing. So leave an educated comment and let me know why Curtis Stevens makes no sense, but Nobuhiro Ishida makes sense. Explain that one. I rest my case. As always, hate, comment, or subscribe. Till next video, it's Ego, signing off.